Hello guys and welcome to our channel Cracking Dentistry. So today we are going to continue our discussion on the odontogenic cyst. So the topic is the glandular odontogenic cyst. Now glandular odontogenic cyst is a rare developmental odontogenic cyst which is highly aggressive with recurrence rates close to 30%. It was first described by Gardner et al. In the year 1987. Now, the diagnosis of this particular lesion is very challenging because it can resemble other odontogenic cysts like lateral periodontal cyst, botryoid odontogenic cyst, radicular cyst or residual cyst which expresses mucous cell prosoplegia on one end of the spectrum, and it can resemble a low-grade mucoepidermoid carcinoma on the other extreme. Now, before going further, I'll just give you a brief introduction on what is a prosoplegia. Now, when a cell acquires a differentiation to a higher level, that is a cell that like your normal epithelium is suddenly acquiring a secretory function by transforming into a mucous cell. This is called as a prosoplegia. Again, please note that it is entirely different from metaplasia. So in metaplasia, the epithelium is actually differentiating into another type of epithelium of the same level. That is, your normal simple epithelium is becoming a ciliated epithelium. Like that. Here a normal epithelium is becoming a mucous cell which has a higher function. This is called as the mucous cell prosoplegia. Now, next thing is that in case of the low-grade mucoepidermoid carcinoma, so many authors while studying this particular cyst histopathologically discovered various glandular tissues within it. So they called it as a xyloodontogenic cyst because they considered that it arises from both the glandular tissue as well as the odontogenic tissue. Again, the resemblance to mucoepidermoid carcinoma earned the name mucoepidermoid cyst. In the year 1992, WHO recognized this cyst as a odontogenic cyst and included it in the classification of your odontogenic cyst. So WHO defined it as a cyst which is arising in the tooth-bearing regions of the jaw, which is characterized by an epithelial lining with a columnar or a cuboidal cell in the surface and lining the crypt or the cyst-like space within the thickness of the epithelium. Now, this glandular structure, which was actually considered as a characteristic feature of this particular cyst, was actually microcysts. They are not true glandular structures, and they were found to rupture into the cystic lumen. So they confirmed that it does not arise from glandular as well as odontogenic components. It is a purely odontogenic lesion which shows pseudoglandular structures. So next, moving on to the clinical features. So it is most commonly seen in middle-aged adults, and it is rarely encountered in an individual who is younger than 20 years old. There is no specific gender or racial predilection seen in this particular cyst. Now again, like with odontogenic keratosis, this particular cyst is also more common in the mandible. But however, it is more common in the anterior mandibular regions than in the posterior region, like with your case with your odontogenic keratosis or your lateral periodontal cyst. Now, mandibular lesions tend to cross the midline. Next, if the lesion is less than 1 centimeter, that is, in case of a small lesion, it is asymptomatic, whereas a lesion which grows to more than 1 centimeter, that is a large expansile lesion, will give rise to a clinically visible lesion which is highly destructive in nature. So here you can see this particular lesion is your glandular odontogenic cyst. Now again, clinically you cannot come to a diagnosis. You need the supportive histopathological features to come into the diagnosis. Again, pain and paresthesia may be an associated feature in case of your large expansile lesions. So next, moving on to the radiographic features. So it will be a well-defined radiolucency, which can either be a unilocular or a multilocular radiolucency with a corticated rim, which is scalloped in 13% of the cases and sclerotic in case of 8% of the cases that are reported so far. Now, 22% of the cases will give rise to a root resorption and 24% of the cases will show displacement of the involved tooth. Now, the histopathological features. So, on microscopic examination, the lining, that is the cystic lining, will be highly variable. So, the lining in majority of the portions is a non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. So, the superficial epithelial lining can be cuboidal or columnar, and these cells are called as hobnail cells because of their appearance. Now again, these cells may show any cilia or filiform extension from the cytoplasm. Then in few areas there is pseudoglandular structures or the microcyst structures present, which I already explained. So in few areas these cysts or crypts, they actually open into the cystic lumen, releasing their content. Now they are recognized as pseudoglandular structures, and this ruptured glandular appearance or this microcyst give rise to the corrugated or the papillary surface of the lining. Now again, these pseudoglandular structures may either remain empty or contain an eosinophilic material which stains for mucic carbon. So this contains mucus material. Few areas there may be epithelial plaques which resemble a lateral periodontal cyst, a gingival cyst of adult, or a botryoid odontogenic cyst. Now these epithelial plaques may either protrude into the cystic lumen or extend into the connective tissue wall. In few areas there is presence of intraepithelial sperules also. Now the connective tissue wall may show certain microcysts or odontogenic epithelial islands. Again, calcification, though not a common feature, can also be seen. So here you can see the lining epithelium, which is of variable thickness and has a corrugated appearance. You can see the pseudoglandular or the microcystic structure, which is composed of an eosinophilic material. Now the connective tissue again shows a variable amounts of cells, mostly inflammatory cells and fibroblasts. So in this picture you can more clearly appreciate the cilia and the pseudoglandular or your microcystic structure. So Kaplan actually gave a diagnostic criteria which includes your major criterion and the minor criterion for the diagnosis. So the major criteria includes variations in the thickness, with or without epithelial spears, whorls or palisades. Now the squamous epithelial lining with a flat interface, that is epithelial connective tissue interface is flat. Then cuboidal eosinophilic cells or your hobnail cells will be visualized. Mucus or goblet cells with intraepithelial mucus pools, with or without crypts lined by the mucus producing cells, and intraepithelial glandular microcysts or duct-like structures are also seen. These comprise the major criterion, whereas the minor criterion include papillary projections, ciliated cells, multicystic or multiluminal architecture, and clear or vacuolated cells in the basal or the spinous leg. Now moving on to the differential diagnosis. So I already told you what all are the lesions that this is going to resemble. So it can resemble a lateral periodontal cyst, a botryoid odontogenic cyst or a radicular cyst when there is presence of mucus cell prosoplastia. So here in these conditions the lesion is going to be less aggressive. Again, in lateral periodontal cyst and botryoid odontogenic cyst, the lesion is going to show the characteristic clear cells as well as the epithelial plaques, which are more commonly seen, and unless the mucus cell prosoplastia has set in, they are going to lack the goblet or the mucus cells. Again, the pseudoglandular structures are also going to be absent in these lateral periodontal cyst and butchered odontogenic cyst. Now in case of a radicular cyst, the tooth that are seen in association with the cyst is going to be a non-vital tooth. Again, it will show the inflammatory infiltrate more densely, as well as presence of the cholesterol clefts and the arcading pattern. Now in case of a low grade MEC, the characteristic thing is going to be the visualization of the malignant cells and the characteristic mucus epidermoid as well as the clear cells. So again, keratinization can also be seen in this MEC. Again, association of normal salivary gland is also going to be a characteristic feature which will help in differentiating the salivary gland tumor from this odontogenic cyst. Now finally, the treatment procedure. So in the treatment, for small lesions, enucleation is the most preferred technique. If the cyst is seen in close vicinity to vital structures, marsupialization is performed. Again, in case of large lesions, surgical procedures are most preferred, like a peripheral osteectomy, marginal resection and partial jaw resection. Again, in case of aggressive expansive lesions, en bloc resection is performed. Now, 30% of the cases have reported to have a high recurrence rate. I hope you like this video. Please press the like button and subscribe to our channel, and do give your feedback in the form of comments. Thank you and have a nice day.